The small shuttle docked at Centauri Station, and Admiral Jiwoo Park felt the familiar knot in her stomach tighten. 3 years into her assignment as Earth's chief diplomat to the Galactic Council, and she still hadn't gotten used to the artificial gravity. Apollo sensed her discomfort, pressing his warm body against her leg. The German shepherd's dark eyes looked up at her with understanding that sometimes felt deeper than what she received from her alien counterparts. "Just us against the universe, boy," Jiwoo whispered, running her fingers through Apollo's thick fur. He was more than a pet. In the cold emptiness of space, surrounded by species who viewed humans as barely evolved primates, Apollo was a living reminder of the green hills and blue skies of home. The apartment assigned to her was larger than most on the station, a small courtesy extended to Earth's representative. The walls were the same sterile white as everything else built by the Council, but Jiwoo had filled the space with small treasures from Earth. Real wooden furniture, plant cuttings that struggled in the artificial light, and Apollo's oversized bed that took up an entire corner of the living area. That morning had started like any other. Apollo's cold nose had woken her at 0600 hours, standard Earth time. They'd shared breakfast, nutrient paste for her, the Council's idea of human food, and premium dog food for Apollo, shipped at ridiculous expense from Earth. Then the call came through on her comm system. "Unscheduled inspection, Admiral Park," announced the emotionless voice of a station AI. "Council security team arriving in 10 minutes. Standard protocol." Jiwoo straightened her uniform and checked her appearance in the mirror. These standard protocols had increased lately, especially after Earth had questioned the Council's handling of the Proxima Centauri colonization rights. Politics disguised as procedure. "Sit tight, Apollo," she said, scratching behind his ears. "Just another day of showing the Council we can play by their rules." The security team arrived exactly on time. 4 Council officials led by Toril, a tall, blue-skinned representative from the Aldebaran system. His 6-fingered hands held a scanner that he waved around the apartment without asking permission. "Your living quarters continue to register anomalous energy signatures, Admiral," Toril said, his translator making his words sound flat and cold. "The Council has concerns." Jiwoo maintained her diplomatic smile. "My equipment is standard Earth technology, approved by Council regulations. Perhaps your scanners are calibrated for different energy patterns?" Toril's face, if you could call the arrangement of sensory organs a face, shifted in what humans had learned was an expression of contempt. "Our technology is beyond error," Apollo growled softly from his corner, sensing the tension in the room. One of the junior officials turned sharply, pointing a different scanner directly at the dog. "This biological entity registers as non-standard," the official said. Jiwoo stepped forward. "Apollo is registered in my diplomatic file. Earth representatives are permitted 1 companion animal under Section 47 of the Diplomatic Protocol. New information suggests Earth animals may carry microbes harmful to certain Council species," Toril replied. "This was not disclosed in your documentation." "That's absurd," Jiwoo said, feeling her carefully maintained composure slipping. "Apollo has been on this station for 3 years without incident. He's undergone every required medical scan." The junior official was still pointing the scanner at Apollo, who had risen to his feet, hackles raised. The dog wasn't aggressive, but he was protective. "Apollo, stay," Jiwoo commanded, her voice firm but gentle. What happened next occurred so quickly that Jiwoo would replay it in her nightmares for months afterward. The junior official pressed something on his scanner. A soft blue light enveloped Apollo. The dog made a small sound, almost a sigh, and then collapsed to the floor. "What did you do?" Jiwoo shouted, rushing to Apollo's side. His body was already growing cold, his eyes empty. "Standard containment procedure for biological contaminants," Toril stated, as if he were commenting on the station's recycling system. "The animal has been neutralized humanely." Jiwoo felt something break. Inside her chest, 3 years of diplomatic training, of swallowing her pride, of representing Earth with dignity, all of it vaporized in an instant of raw human grief. "You had no right," she whispered, cradling Apollo's head in her lap. "Your emotional attachment to a lesser species demonstrates precisely why humans remain on probationary status within the Council, Toral observed. The procedure is complete. We will expect your formal incident report by tomorrow. After they left, Jiwoo sat on the floor, holding Apollo for hours, tears silently tracking down her face. What the Council didn't know, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that Apollo wasn't just her companion. Each of his cells had been carefully engineered to carry quantum-encrypted coordinates, a biological key to Earth's hidden military installations. It was a failsafe, developed when humanity first encountered the stars and realized they might not be welcomed as equals. In killing Apollo, the Council hadn't just taken her friend. They had activated a silent alarm that was already racing toward Earth, faster than light, carrying news that would forever change humanity's place among the stars. The quantum alert reached Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station in the Mariana Trench at 0347 hours. The signal, encoded in Apollo's DNA, transmitted faster than light through pathways the Galactic Council didn't know existed. Within minutes, the night shift operators had verified the authentication sequence and sent the emergency code to military. Command. General Hyunwoo Kim was asleep when his bedroom lights gradually brightened to full intensity. The smart house system knew better than to use alarms that might trigger combat reflexes in a 30-year veteran. "Sir," said his home AI in a calm voice, "Priority 0 communication from Centauri Station. Authentication, broken arrow." Hyunwoo was fully awake instantly. In 20 years as head of Earth's defense forces, he'd never received a broken arrow. It meant a diplomatic officer had been killed or, in this case, something equally serious had occurred. "Send a car," he ordered, already reaching for his uniform, "and wake the cabinet." The underwater command center, built 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean floor, wasn't on any official maps. To the Galactic Council and most Earth citizens, the planet's military consisted of a modest orbital defense system and a handful of short-range patrol vessels, barely enough to protect shipping lanes between Earth and its moon colony. The truth lay elsewhere. Hyunwoo's transport pod descended through layers of security checkpoints, finally emerging into a cavern large enough to house a small city. The walls gleamed with light panels designed to mimic natural sunlight. At the center stood a circular table of polished volcanic stone, already surrounded by grim-faced military and civilian leaders. "Everyone's here," said Admiral Taeyong Kang, Hyunwoo's second-in-command. "The president is joining remotely from the Beijing bunker." The main screen flickered to life, showing President Jisoo Lee. Though it was the middle of the night, she appeared fully composed, her eyes sharp. "General Kim, report," she said without preamble. Hyunwoo nodded to the intelligence officer, who projected the data packet from Centauri Station. The room fell silent as they watched the recorded death of a dog, and potentially Earth's peaceful relations with the galaxy. "They've gone too far," Hyunwoo finally said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. This wasn't just an attack on Admiral Park's companion. This was a deliberate provocation, or worse, a test to see how we'd respond. Science Minister Minjun Choi leaned forward. "The Council has been increasingly suspicious of our technological development rate. This could be their way of testing boundaries, or preparing for something worse," added Defense Secretary Yuna Huang. "The timing aligns, with increased Council military exercises near our outer colonies." President Lee's expression remained impassive, but those who knew her recognized the slight tightening around her eyes, the only indication of her anger. 23 years, she said quietly. 23 years we've played the role of the humble newcomers. We've hidden our advances, accepted their guidance, endured their condescension, all to avoid the fate of the Arcturus civilization. Everyone present remembered the history. Arcturus, a species that had advanced too quickly, frightened the Council, and been contained through economic sanctions that eventually collapsed their society. "Perhaps it's time we showed our true position in the galaxy," suggested Admiral Kang. At the President's nod, Hyunwoo activated the secure room's holographic display. The image of Earth's solar system appeared, then zoomed out to show the surrounding star systems. With another command, new markers appeared, 37 red dots positioned throughout the outer solar system and beyond. The Prometheus fleet, Hyunwoo explained for the newer cabinet members. Hidden in plain sight for the past 15 years, some disguised as research stations, others concealed in asteroid fields or the atmospheres of gas giants. Each ship carries technology at least 3 centuries beyond what we've revealed to the Council. The hologram zoomed in on one of the vessels, a sleek obsidian craft unlike the bulky transports Earth officially operated. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Quantum drives capable of bypassing known space-time limitations, energy weapons that can disable rather than destroy, defense systems that redirect attacks rather than absorbing them, Hyunwoo listed. We built them not to start a war, but to ensure we'd never need to fight one. Defense Secretary Huang looked troubled. Revealing the fleet means exposing dozens of technological breakthroughs we've kept hidden. The political fallout will be enormous. Better political fallout than actual fallout, Science Minister Choi countered. The Council grows more restrictive each year. How long before they decide Earth itself is a biological contaminant, President? Lee listened to the debate for several minutes before raising her hand for silence. What happened to Admiral Park's companion wasn't an isolated incident, she said. It's consistent with 17 other provocations over the past year. The Council is testing us, seeing how much we'll tolerate. Their history with other species shows a pattern. Push until they find resistance, then either respect boundaries or eliminate the threat. She paused, her gaze moving from face to face. We cannot appear weak, nor can we react with disproportionate aggression. Therefore, I am authorizing Operation Silent Dawn. The room stirred. Silent Dawn wasn't a military strike. It was something more subtle and potentially more devastating. Prepare the fleet, she ordered. Not for war, but for revelation. It's time the Council learned that Earth will not be the galaxy's latest cautionary tale. As the meeting continued into the early morning hours, officers hurried through the vast underground complex, transmitting coded orders to operatives positioned throughout Council space. Beyond Neptune, 37 advanced warships silently powered up systems that would redefine humanity's place among the stars. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had never been defenseless, merely patient. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed under artificial light, designed to accommodate the visual preferences of 17 different species. High above the speaking floor, curved walls displayed the emblem of each member world. Earth's symbol noticeably smaller than the others and marked with the telltale border of probationary status. Council leader Drav, a towering figure whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected prismatic patterns across the chamber, called the session to order with a resonant tone from his speaking staff. We begin with the incident report from Centauri Station, Drav announced. The human diplomatic quarters were found to contain an unauthorized biological entity carrying potential contaminants. The entity was neutralized according to standard protocol. In the Earth Delegations section, Junior Ambassador Minji Yoon clenched her fists beneath the table. She had been the one to inform Admiral Park about the emergency session, watching her superior's face transform from grief to something harder, colder. Then Park had simply asked Minji to attend the council meeting in her place, claiming she needed time to prepare her official statement. Minji knew better. Park hadn't shed a single tear during their conversation. Instead, she'd been making calls to Earth, lots of them. Council member Toril, who had led the inspection team, rose to speak. The human representative displayed extreme emotional distress over the neutralization procedure, he stated flatly. This reinforces previous concerns about human psychological stability. I move to extend Earth's probationary status for another 50 standard cycles. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Earth had been on probationary status for 23 years, far longer than any other species in Council history. Each time the period neared its end, some new concern would extend it further. The human vessel was simply an animal, added Representative Zoll of the Rigelian Compact. Their attachment to lesser species continues to puzzle more evolved minds. Laughter spread across several delegations. Minji bit her tongue so hard she tasted blood. This was nothing new, the casual dismissal, the condescension barely disguised as concern. Earth had weathered it for decades, playing the part of the grateful newcomer, accepting whatever terms were offered just to have a seat at the galactic table. Council leader Drav raised his staff again. "We will now vote on extending Earth's probationary—" The chamber's lights flickered. The massive central holographic display, which had been showing statistics on Earth's compliance issues, suddenly went dark. "Security breach. Announced." The chamber's AI system. "Unknown transmission source." Before security protocols could activate, the display exploded back to life. But instead of council graphics, it showed the face of Admiral Ji-Woo Park, her eyes clear and focused. "Honored Council," she said, her voice echoing throughout the chamber without using the official translation system. "I apologize for interrupting. Your important deliberations about my pet dog." Drav slammed his staff down. "This is outrageous. Security, cut this transmission." Your security systems have been temporarily adjusted," Park continued as if she hadn't heard him. "Don't worry, the effect is harmless and temporary, rather like how you viewed my relationship with Apollo." The display zoomed out, showing that Park stood on what appeared to be a starship bridge, but not any Earth vessel design the Council had ever seen. Behind her, officers in uniforms of midnight blue operated sleek control stations that seemed to respond to the lightest touch. "For 23 years you have judged us," Park said. "You thought us weak. You treated us as inferior. You took something precious without remorse. Today you will learn what that has cost you." The display split into multiple screens, showing various locations throughout the solar system. From behind Jupiter's red spot, a massive ship emerged, its hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Near Saturn's rings, 3 more vessels decloaked. From Neptune's atmosphere, a 5th ship appeared, then a 6th, then more, each with designs unlike anything in the Council database. "Impossible," whispered Representative Zoll. "Their technology is primitive. We've monitored their development carefully." "No," Park corrected. "You monitored what we allowed you to see. You observed the technological progress we displayed, while we built something else entirely away from your watching eyes." The display changed again, showing detailed schematics of one of the vessels. Energy readings indicated power sources far beyond Council standards. Weapon systems that operated on principles some Council scientists had only theorized about. "This is the HMS Prometheus," Park explained. "The first of 37 ships we've constructed over the last 15 years, while publicly struggling. To maintain a modest lunar colony, we were building these in secret. Not for conquest, but for the day we might need to defend ourselves." The Council chamber had fallen completely silent. Minji looked around at the alien faces, seeing expressions ranging from shock to outright fear. "How?" demanded Drav finally. "Our monitoring systems were designed to detect known technologies," Park finished for him. "We simply took different paths. While you refined existing science, we explored alternatives. When you saw us struggle with antimatter containment, in our public projects, we had already moved beyond it to something better." The holographic display now showed a complete tactical map of Council space. Red dots appeared throughout, not just in the solar system, but near key Council worlds and installations. "We also have operatives and smaller vessels positioned throughout Council territory," Park continued. "Not as spies or saboteurs, but as observers. We wanted to understand who you truly were before revealing ourselves fully." Representative Toral stood suddenly. "This is a declaration of war. Earth threatens." "The Council!" Park's expression remained calm. "If we wanted war, we would have struck without warning. Instead, we're having a conversation, something the Council seems to have forgotten how to do with species it deems lesser." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "We've hidden our true strength waiting to judge your worthiness, and I regret to inform you that you have been found wanting." The tactical display zoomed in on Centauri Station, where 3 of the mysterious Earth vessels now held position, having appeared seemingly from nowhere. "Humanity does not desire conflict," Park said, "but neither will we accept being treated as children who need guidance or pets who can be put down when inconvenient. From this moment forward, Earth's probationary status is ended, not by your vote but by our declaration." Council Leader Drav's crystalline form had lost some of its luster. "What are your demands, Admiral Park?" Park straightened, her uniform catching the light. Not demands, an invitation. To start again as equals, to build a council that truly represents all sentient life, not just those who discovered starlight first. She paused, looking directly into the transmission. And perhaps to learn that sometimes the most dangerous beings in the galaxy are those you've taught to hide their strength. With that, the transmission ended, returning to normal council displays. But outside the chamber windows, visible to every representative present, a new star seemed to have appeared in the sky, the running lights of an Earth ship that had not been there moments before. In the silence that followed, Minji Yun stood up from the Earth delegation table and walked calmly toward the exit. No, one tried to stop her. Alarms blared throughout the Council's primary defense station as emergency protocols activated across 17 different species communication channels. The massive view screen in Central Command displayed dozens of red alert notifications appearing simultaneously across Council space. "Impossible," muttered High Commander Vex, his scaled fingers flying across the control panel. "They can't be in all these locations at once," but the data didn't lie. Earth vessels had appeared near every major Council installation, military outpost and homeworld, materializing without warning, without triggering proximity sensors, without leaving warp signatures. It defied everything the Council knew about. "Physics. The human ships are maintaining position," reported Junior Tactician Lorne. "They're not advancing or charging weapons." Vex's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Deploy the defense fleet. All ships, all stations. Authorization Omega Red." Throughout Council space, battle cruisers emerged from hidden docks, defense platforms, powered weapon systems designed to eliminate entire fleets. The Council had maintained peace for millennia through overwhelming military superiority, a fact carefully hidden from newer species like humans. On the bridge of the HMS Artemis, Admiral Ji-Woo Park stood with perfect posture, hands clasped behind, her back as she watched the Council's military might unfold on the tactical display. The Artemis had taken position near the Council's flagship, the Righteous Mandate, a behemoth of a vessel that dwarfed her ship by at least 5 times. "They've activated their full defense grid," reported Lieutenant Junho Lee from the sensor station. 17 dreadnoughts approaching our position, weapons charging. Park nodded calmly. "As expected." Commander Su-Min Kang approached her side, speaking quietly. "Admiral, the Council forces outnumber us significantly." "Numbers built on old science," Park replied. "They're still using directed energy weapons and particle shields, technology we abandoned a decade ago." The communications officer turned in her seat. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Righteous Mandate. It's High Commander Vex himself." "On screen," Park ordered. The main view screen shifted to show the reptilian features of the Council's supreme military commander. His ceremonial armor gleamed under the bright lights of his command center, designed to intimidate through its complexity and scale. "Human vessel," Vex began, not bothering with pleasantries. "You have committed acts of aggression against the Galactic Council. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded or face immediate destruction." Park allowed herself a small smile. "High Commander, if we meant aggression, you wouldn't be having this conversation. Your sensors confirm we haven't armed our weapons." "Your mere presence is provocation enough," Vex snarled. "The Council has not authorized Earth to possess military vessels of this classification." "The Council's authorization was never required," Park replied evenly, "just as the Council never required authorization to kill my dog." Around her, the bridge crew maintained professional composure, but Park knew each of them felt the same cold anger that had been driving her since Apollo's death. It wasn't just about a pet. It was about what that action represented. The casual cruelty of power without accountability. "You have 30 seconds to surrender," Vex warned. Park straightened her uniform jacket. "Before you make a grave mistake, I suggest you analyze our ships more carefully. Your sensors should be detecting something unusual about our hull composition." On the Righteous Mandate, the science officer was indeed staring at her readings, with growing confusion. "Commander," she interrupted, "the human vessels, they appear to be partially phased out of normal spacetime. Our weapons may not—" Fire! Vex ordered, cutting her off. The massive Council flagship shuddered as its primary cannons discharged, lances of destructive energy that would normally vaporize any known ship material. The beams struck the Artemis directly and passed through, it continuing into empty space. On the Artemis, not so much as a warning light flickered. "Phase shift complete," reported the tactical officer. "Zero damage sustained." Park nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Now, demonstrate our response capabilities." With a few taps on his console, the officer sent commands to the Artemis's systems. Outside, a barely visible ripple spread from the Earth vessel, expanding in a perfect sphere until it touched the righteous mandate. Throughout the massive Council ship, systems began shutting down. Weapons went offline, shields collapsed. Even life support faltered momentarily before emergency backups engaged. "What have you done?" Vex demanded, his image now flickering on the Artemis's view screen as his ship's power fluctuated. "A localized phase shift disruption," Park explained. "Non-lethal, temporary, and completely beyond your current scientific understanding. Your ship will reset in approximately 10 minutes. She stepped closer to the screen, her voice dropping to a dangerous softness. That was one ship using one non-weaponized system. Imagine what 37 fully armed vessels could do. Around Council space, similar demonstrations were occurring. Earthships simply ignored the laws of physics as the Council understood them. Energy weapons passed through them. Physical projectiles changed course at the last second. Targeting systems couldn't maintain locks. It wasn't that Earth had better weapons. They were operating on fundamentally different principles. "We don't want war," Park continued, "but neither will we continue to accept the Council's version of peace. Your society claims to value knowledge and cooperation, yet you've systematically suppressed developing species, hidden technological advances from newer members, and maintained military dominance through secrecy rather than legitimate authority." The tactical display showed Council forces regrouping, preparing for another attack. Park sighed. They still didn't understand. "Your ship's systems will be back online shortly," she told Vex. "When they are, you face a choice. You can continue this pointless demonstration and force us to reveal even more advanced capabilities, or you can open a genuine dialogue." Park's eyes hardened. "Recognize humanity as equals. Offer reparations to the species you've subjugated over the centuries. Reform your governance to be truly representative, or witness humanity's full potential. The choice is yours." Vex's features contorted with rage. "We built this galaxy's order over millennia. We will not be dictated to by primitives who only recently learned to split the atom." Behind him, officers were reporting weapons coming back, online. The righteous mandate's massive hull began to glow as its main cannon charged for another attempt. Park closed her eyes briefly. "I was afraid you'd say that." She nodded to her communications officer. "Send the signal to activate Phase 2. Throughout Council space, Earth's vessels shifted in unison. They didn't fire weapons or launch attacks. Instead, they simply changed. Their hulls began emitting patterns of light that pulsed in perfect synchronization across distances that should have made such coordination impossible. And in that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy tilted on its axis. The synchronized light patterns emitting from Earth's vessels created something no one in the Council had witnessed before, a galaxy-wide quantum communication network that bypassed all known security protocols. Within seconds, every communication device, entertainment system, and information terminal across thousands of worlds began receiving the same transmission. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was the truth. Classified Council archives appeared on screens everywhere. Documents detailing centuries of deliberate technological suppression. Treaties promising cultural exchange while secretly restricting information flow. Scientific breakthroughs hidden from lesser species. Entire civilizations kept in technological stasis through carefully engineered economic dependencies. And most damning of all, the containment protocols, the Council's systematic program for ensuring no new species ever rose to challenge the founding members' power. On the bridge of the righteous mandate, High Commander Vex watched in horror as his crew stared at their personal devices, witnessing the unraveling of everything they had been taught to believe. "Shut it down," he roared. "This is treasonous propaganda." But it wasn't propaganda. Every file contained verification codes only council leadership could generate. The information was authentic and devastating. Throughout council space, human operatives who had spent decades in deep cover revealed themselves. Scientists working on restricted projects suddenly announced breakthroughs that had been suppressed. Diplomats released recordings of private council meetings where representatives openly mocked the species they claimed to be guiding toward galactic citizenship. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On 17 major worlds, crowds gathered. Outside council buildings, ships from lesser species began disabling their council-mandated tracking systems. 3 council members publicly resigned, admitting their complicity in what one called the greatest fraud ever perpetrated across the stars. Admiral Ji-woo Park watched the chaos unfold from the Artemis, her expression solemn. This wasn't celebration. This was surgery, painful but necessary to excise the rot that had been growing for millennia. "The Rigelian fleet has stood down," reported Lieutenant Junho. "They're requesting direct communication with Earth leadership. The Proxima Centauri colony has declared independence from Council oversight," added Commander Kang. 3 other frontier worlds are following suit, Park nodded. "And the Council headquarters. In disarray," Kang replied. 4 security fleets have withdrawn support. The Aldebaran delegation is calling for emergency reforms, exactly as predicted. Earth hadn't needed weapons to dismantle the Council's power, just truth, delivered in a way that couldn't be contained or controlled. 3 days later, Admiral Park stood in the Grand Chamber, where just a week before she had been considered barely worthy of acknowledgement. Now representatives from 27 species had gathered at her invitation. The chamber looked different. The hierarchical seating had been replaced with a circular arrangement where no position held symbolic superiority. "We did not come here to replace one flawed system with another," Park began, her voice carrying naturally through the space. "Humanity has no desire to rule. We hid our advancements not out of fear, but to understand what kind of galaxy we had joined." She gestured to the faces around her, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form and thought. The old council claimed to value diversity while enforcing conformity. They preached cooperation while practicing control. We propose something different, a true alliance of equals, where advancement is shared, not hoarded. From her pocket, Park removed something small, a simple metal tag with worn edges, Apollo's collar tag. She placed it on the center table. This may seem trivial to some of you, a memento of a lesser creature, but it represents something profound, that how we treat the most vulnerable reveals our true character. The casual cruelty that took this companion from me exposed the rot at the Council's core. Representatives from worlds that had suffered under Council guidance nodded in understanding. Others looked uncomfortable, still adjusting to this new reality. "Today we established the Apollo protocols," Park continued. "First among them, no sentient being, regardless of technological advancement, may be subjected to exploitation, experimentation, or extinction without full informed consent and representation. Over the next 12 hours, the framework for a new interstellar order took shape. Knowledge embargoes were lifted. Technology sharing initiatives were established. Species previously deemed pre-contact were invited to join as protected members until they could represent themselves fully." 6 weeks later, Ji-woo Park returned to Centauri Station, not as Earth's humble representative, but as the elected facilitator of the new Galactic Alliance. The station itself had been transformed. The sterile corridors now featured living plants, natural materials and cultural artifacts from dozens of worlds. Where her apartment had once stood, a memorial garden now bloomed with flowers from Earth and 16 other worlds. At its center stood a simple statue of a German shepherd, head alert, eyes watching the stars. A small plaque beneath it read, "For Apollo, whose life reminded us that the true measure of civilization is how we treat those entrusted to our care. And for all beings who suffered while we remained silent." Children from the station's newly established school often visited the garden. Their teacher, a Rigelian who had once been considered too emotionally expressive for important diplomatic work, would tell them the story of how the galaxy changed. It wasn't fleets or weapons that brought down an empire built on secrets, she would explain. It was truth, finally spoken. And it all began because someone loved their dog. In her new office, Admiral Park kept only one personal item, a hologram of Apollo playing on a beach in Korea, chasing waves under Earth's bright sun. Sometimes, when the work of rebuilding a more just galaxy seemed overwhelming, she would watch it and remember why the struggle mattered. Sometimes the smallest cruelty reveals the largest injustice, and sometimes the love for one being can spark the change needed by billions.